But we are ready to start here, the academic publishing panel, as we are calling it in short, but it is really a panel that will look at current models adopted by academic book publishing in India and across the disciplines, including STM and social sciences and humanities. I'd like to invite the speakers of this session to please come onto the stage. Emma House, Sanjeev Goswami, Vivek Mehra, Indu Chandrasekhar. I'm so sorry. A quick introduction. It's all there actually in your book, but let me do a quick introduction so that, to save us all a little bit of reading time. Sanjeev Goswami, who will moderate the panel today in place of Mr. Rohit Kumar, who unfortunately had to be called away due to a family emergency. Sanjeev is the CEO of Springer India, which is the largest STM publisher, or one of the largest STM publishers. Let's say one of the largest STM publishers in the world. Sanjeev started the office for Springer India in India. And next to him on his left is Vivek Mehra, the managing director of Sage India. And on his other side is Natasha. She is the managing director of Taylor&Francis. And next to her is Indu, who is the managing director of Tulika Books Delhi, not to be confused with Tulika Books Chennai, the children's book publishers. Okay. Managing editor, so sorry. Managing editor. And Emma House from the UK Publishers Association. We are very happy to have her here all the way from England. Thank you for joining us, all of you. And I'm going to request Sanjeev to please take this forward.
Well, thank you, Vinodha, for already introducing the panel. What we do professionally is already described in this book, so I'll leave it to you to read it at leisure if you're interested to know what we know in detail. Yes, and Vinodha already announced that I'm a substitute moderator. I was prepared for a more discussion role, and unfortunately Rohit could not make it, and so if I make mistakes in moderation, please blame Rohit, not me. Well, quickly to get started, we are about 20 minutes only behind schedule, so we'll try to end at 12:30. The advantage of not having Rohit is lost, because I was thinking since he won't talk, then we'll have 20 minutes extra to possibly have more questions. Since I need to play the role of facilitating the discussion here today, academic publishing is a fairly vast term, and you could actually describe the world within that term. And there's a lot, of course, happening, as is happening in publishing. So I put together just a few PowerPoint slides here, though that's not the popular idea here, to give us the background and the canvas that we can visualize and talk about. Let's start with on a funny note. That's the world that we're looking at. What we perceived in the past is not what the new generation perceives. The world has changed, and this cartoon kind of sets the note for it. Are the newspapers really going to survive? Are we really willing to wait for information? Or is the instant handheld become the newspaper of today? Well, that's something which, of course, will get debated as we talk within the panel, as well as with you as equal participants to this session. What I've tried here to depict is the broad academic world. Research reference, academic, library editions. The transition from print to E has been fairly achieved. Most of the successes since search, cross-ref, a large amount of information are the elements which drive access to this kind of information. Models also have kind of come to stabilize, and things are pretty much clear. That's where a lot of business growth also is happening, a lot of acceptability across the world, and this is where journals, books, and all that library, consortia and all that belong. On the fiction and journal side, I think already the digitization process of what is available in print also has been accomplished, and fair amount of visibility of all kind of literature, fiction, journal books has been achieved through the use of technology. There's not much in terms of enhancement of content which has happened there. Maybe Emma would like to differ with me during when she gets a chance to talk about it. But it's basically been the e-sellers market which has kind of taken over. It's the Amazons, and so they've kind of found a way of delivering the content and created the logistics systems to be able to do that, and fairly successfully. On the education and school side, that's when we talk of these two segments, we immediately start thinking of students and textbooks. Now that's something which is in a largely experimental stage. I think at the higher education level, we still don't have a fixed model which can substitute e-licensing or e-books in terms of the revenue that print books in multiple copies would deliver before everybody in the class bought those copies. Well, there are some interesting experiments, and we shall hear from the learned panel that I have here with me today. But that's kind of the field. School, again, is a lot of experiments, a lot of whiteboard, blackboard technology is coming to play, getting phased out, companies really doing well, shutting down very quickly. Lots of application people, lots of technology people creating millions of applications to see if technology can manage content in a way that is useful to these segments. So there's a lot of development which has happened, and there's a lot, I guess, will happen, and hopefully we have a lot to find solutions for. So this being kind of the background that we academic businesses face, we have a lot to share, and we also have a lot to debate. But if you look at how have things really changed, I just kind of would like to go over the basics with you. In the traditional model, actually I can't see it.
I think we can dim the lights.
So we had this branding of journals by the title, and it was a great honor for a scientist to be able to find a way of publishing an article there.
No, we need
And it became a kind of a
need for the cameras.
his lifetime pursuit to be able to do that with most of the eminent journals. Society clout was very important in traditional forms of print publishing journals. Anyway, let me not refer to it, I'll speak from memory.
Let's shut the lights. It's fine. The program is more important than the videography.
And ultimately, the reputation of the journal and the much debated impact factor mechanisms to measure the quality of scientific research being published.
Please shut the lights.
What's changed lately is the growth of mega journals. And the drastic change it brings about in journals publishing is the first time we are looking at an article publishing. An article becomes important. It is not necessarily linked to a journal of repute, a title of repute, or a very strong society clout. It's kind of good science, good material finding its way in these mega journals. And when this kind of publishing, article-based publishing, is kind of phenomenally growing, it is also encouraging new models like the open access, sponsorship, green, gold, open access models, hybrid models to kind of experiment with or find a presence in alternative ways of publishing high-end scientific research. New metrics with the digitization process are emerging. You have usage, you have You can see things far more clearly. So the world of scientific journals publishing drastically has changed. It's a completely new world that we live in today. What's happening with books? I guess the Facebook will not become the publisher of the future. It definitely put us out of business and authors will know what to do. But the similar changes have come about in the books world. We had books written by a few authors, emphasis on text, print books, cover-to-cover reading was normally the way of reading a fiction, a text, or even to that extent a reference book. And look, books sold at stable list prices. Very nice, easy world, set over the last four centuries, or world over 4 centuries. No problem at all. Distributors are happy, bookstores are happy, publishers are happy, authors are happy, and then came the technology. Well, was it good or bad is something that we shall debate. Global authorship suddenly becomes possible in this new world. The multiple authors, you can actually have hundreds of authors to publish or contribute towards a certain book. And it's actually happening, especially in the area of medicine. If you imagine, if there are high-end medical topics in which you can get your top experts across the world to contribute into a single volume, look at the value of information that you create and the usefulness for it, for the scientific community and the general society in general. Enhanced ebooks, multimedia is playing a big role. That's where the applications will also come in. The reading trends are more by chapters we see. Books in the digital world are book chapters and journal articles driven by metadata. Open access is the new form of publishing a part of the book or a whole book. It's not necessary that the investments is only through the publisher's own resources. It becomes more independent. Institutions can drive today publications of books that they believe contribute to the scientific work. Of course, there are endless questions. In the world of books, who decides what to publish and what to read? Are we ready for this change, the phenomenal change in the way that we absorb knowledge and information? Are the IT professionals going to drive publishing businesses? What is the role of academics and libraries in the future? These are some of the obvious questions which crosses your mind when you sit down here and ponder where are we going. So, ladies and gentlemen, over to the panelists to give us more insights into what's happening. And the start was not at the point of dissemination of content. Publishing industry began to change at its very core. So let me invite Nitasha, an old colleague of mine, to kind of tell us how the publishing life cycle evolved and what is it today and how is daily content created. So Nitasha, over to you.
Turn back the lights on. No more DVDs.
So good afternoon, everybody. Can I just start on a lighter note and say that it's a pleasure to be on a panel with majority of women. It's not something one experiences often. In fact, I don't think I've ever in the last couple of years had a chance where there are more women than men on any academic publishing panel. So it's a great feeling to have. Yeah, it's fun. Cheers to us. And it's also equally nice to see an audience which is sort of balanced and mixed. interestingly, the way today started, it's, you know, with Mama Guy and what really touched me personally about her whole, I'll just take a minute on this and then move on, was that it connected me again to the reason why I am in publishing, really. You know, the personal, she actually, it was very kind of her, she gave us an intimate sort of glimpse into the writer's mind, dilemmas, confusion. She was very candid about her dealings with publishers and the whole writing process and how much it means. And to me, it was really touching. I found it really touching, and it also made me realize why I'm here in this profession. However, today, I fortunately or unfortunately, one is at the other end, much more at the nitty-gritty, nuts and bolts, practical end of everyday getting books out and you know, the commercial cycle. So that's what one is going to be talking about today. But it was really, it reconnected one with one's past, and the reason one is still here after 20 odd years. My good friend and former colleague Sanjeev Goswami has actually painted a canvas wide, and I'm actually going to stay wide and talk through the whole publishing life cycle and how technology has impacted each stage. And I'll skim over the parts which are better known and more well known, so that I can stay with my time. And when I'm doing this, I'm pretty much talking about, you know, books and journals. I'm pretty much talking about print and online. I'm pretty much talking about all subject areas. So it's, and I'll give you examples, and my examples will be from my own experience, which is with the Taylor&Francis group from our imprints. But it's pretty much the kind of technology I'm going to be talking about is pretty much something which, you know, variations of which all major publishers have. So it's quite universal in a certain section of publishing. Okay, so having said that, let's start with the starting point, the commissioning process. Now, what has happened there is that obviously, and I'll come back to how it impacts on search for authors, but beyond that, the whole submission process is now online. Your reviews are done online. I mean, in journals, this is much more advanced. These trends are there in both books and journals, but journals publishing is much more advanced technologically than books in general. So it's, you know, a lot of my examples are going to be from there. So we have in Taylor&Francis journals something called Editorial Manager, which is, it's a whole platform in which for submission as well as online submission and review of manuscripts. So you can actually submit it there. It gets, the whole review process takes place there. Once your manuscript is accepted, you can actually, and we have this books, both for books, you can digitally sign contracts, you can with your manuscript upload, you know, the add-on materials like copyright permissions and all of that. So, and this talks to the production system that we have, which, you know, the next process as you get into the production life cycle of the book. So interestingly, you have, there's a peer, besides the peer review system which I mentioned, there's also cross-check, which is the plagiarism check online system, you know. So the whole process is using technology and increasing efficiency, speed, and the other side of Editorial Manager is actually that it can shoot out reports. So you can get to know where more submissions are coming from in terms of geographic area or in terms of the subject areas of research where more of it is happening. You can get to know how long the review process is taking. So it's both ends. So publishers can refine better their processes and the speed with which and efficiency with which they handle it. And on the other side, there's more convenience, speed, and efficiency for submissions as well from authors. Now, a very important part of the initial start of the publishing process is the development of the material. So, I mean, I'm going to here take examples from books. So, the book development process, say, for textbooks, Now I'll give the example from one of our publishing imprints. This is a small called Garland Science, which is a small biology publisher. They do a handful of textbooks, 7, 8 textbooks, and their total list will maybe 20 titles or so in a year. So it's a small group. So how has technology impacted the way in which, and the book development process for our textbooks, for example. So first is the market research. I mean, there's much more for all keys. So syllabi are research. What are the key courses? Where is the gap? What is the competition? What is the strength of the competition? How is all this changing? Now, this is not to say that textbook publishers have been doing this for eons and they've always done it. But what technology has done is that it has rationalized the process, speeded it up, made it more efficient. You can look at 15 years data. You can see how it's changed, how courses are changing. So all these inputs are then going into being given to authors to develop the material, to write the books, the textbook. Then we have what we call developmental editing, where besides the standard editing, copy editing processes, you also edit for language, besides language you edit for level, for the voice, for the pedagogical features, so that it fits more and more into the requirements of what the market is telling us through our research, what students and teachers want. There's of course the whole supplementary aids, which again has been, it's a trend which has been going on, which are added to textbooks. So you have a print textbook, but you have a whole lot of supplementary aids which are available online. And that is again something which is developed and enhanced over the last decade or so, where you started with just having question banks, and then you now have PPTs, you have outline lectures, you have quizzes. You've gone beyond that to actually have animations. I think if there's one technology which has really impacted textbooks and publishing in terms of the addition of animations. It's quite interesting. We have this, Garland Science brings out this microbiology textbook. It's a basic textbook for undergrads called Microbiology of the Cell. And it's now in its 6th edition, it's just come out. So, even a person like me who's been out of school for like hundreds of years and studied science only in school, I mean, they had, so with the textbook, they have about 170 or 80 videos which are online available. And just watching a white blood cell chase a bacteria and gobble him up, it's just a completely different learning experience, and something you just can't forget. Or a DNA strand with the proteins getting stacked up. It's amazing. It's just taken it to a different level, the whole experience of teaching and learning. Another area and then that you move from there into that whole, the integrated learning system. Some of the things Sanjeev was mentioning about, is IT becoming more important? Is it because students more and more prefer something which they can use to, get the basics and pass the exam. And so many publishers are actually catering to that by giving a whole set of service. Actually, everybody has some variation of the integrated learning systems, and which are used universally now. So that's another, and some publishers are actually heading in that direction, becoming more and more IT and system and platform driven rather than content driven. Another consequence of technology. The other area where, and I'm staying here basically under the premise that when you're talking about academic publishing, content is the key thing, and that's the base on which you're starting. And an area in which technology has really impacted content is in the area of reference publishing. Now, and this is no longer a very fashionable or prolific publishing area, but we continue to do it under our Routledge brand. And we have found actually that even when free content is available online, still we are able to monetize our reference, our handbooks and companions, for example. One of the oldest example is the Routledge Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which actually, there's a Stanford encyclopedia which is free, but still the Routledge Encyclopedia continues to be bought. So what are the value additions? And that technology is, first of all, you have access to a much bigger database than ever before. You have much better methods of authentication, checking, fact checking, as Mamang Dai was talking about, but much more than that. And plus, then you have the scope to add videos, to put introductions, and I'll talk at the end about the user impact of all that. That users can use our systems to have more and more bespoke content of what they need. How does all the content they need on various systems come together, can talk to each other, can be separately put, so all that is what is the value addition which reference publishing, and which really cuts research time down hugely, and which is why it is an area we continue to invest in spite of the fact that a lot of people say, oh, there's everything available free, so why do you need big reference books? The other interesting space, again, in content is, to create online portals and of communities. So we have something called a sustainability hub, where the environment and sustainability author and researcher community can actually come, they get free. It's not something it's free. So the content is available, they can talk to each other, the latest research is updated, and so it is an arena where a community is created and which can and it's completely because technology is available to do this. Some publishers actually monetize this as well. So recently somebody mentioned to me about, Ashgate has this project management hub like this, which this is for professionals to use, and they actually monetize it. So they created a space, everybody can come online, add material, use material, and they sort of add cases, add actual visual material, and they have found a way to monetize this actually. So again, an arena where, so as you can see, this whole space of content development, of commissioning has really got enhanced in a way by the proliferation of technology. The next stage, of course, comes in production, and this is pretty well known, so I'm going to just skim over it, But if you ask about, basically it's about speed, it's about better quality, it's about, now it's even, it used to be very expensive, it's increasingly cheaper to use these technologies, they're evolving very fast. The whole production process, whether it is for print or for putting them online, is getting much more efficient. But if there is one thing I'd like to flag in this segment of the publishing life cycle, it's really the POD technology, which has revolutionized the way all publishers look at inventory management. And I think one of the nice offshoots of it has been that the remainder market has actually got reduced or killed. Well, not quite dead yet, but impacted quite a lot by the fact that everything's print on demand, and you don't really need to keep huge inventories. And I think that's a real benefit that has come out of technology in this segment. And you will notice that I am continuously talking about print alongside E, because it's basically our experience has been, and pretty much we sell print and E 50-50, globally and certainly in India, and E is basically the journal segment of our business. We found that actually we are able to use technology to enhance our print sales, and that is happening. And when I talk to you about the marketing element, which I'm coming to next, that's what actually has happened. Marketing is again an arena where technology has really transformed the way publishers reach out to end users.
Yeah, because that could be take the marketing discussion to maybe when Emma talks about learning. And
so I'm just keeping it pretty broad. Am I running out of time? Okay. Thank you for being so polite but I'm going to really quickly skim over it. So basically there's digital marketing, which we all know what it is, emailers, sending out the e-catalogs, much more information available. There's social media marketing, where you can actually instantly reach out to communities and talk like-minded, get feedback. And my most favorite one is content marketing, where actually is revolutionized in a sense by the View Insight technology, of Amazon, where end users can actually go in, have a look, make an informed choice. You have free content which you can look at, and you can make a much more informed choice of what you. So all publishers have variations of them. We have things like virtual book fairs, free to view books, free books. Authors have pages on our website where they can, it's called featured authors, where they can interact, present their own research, interact with their own research community, get inputs. And there's a space and a platform provided through technology by the publisher. And I'm going to quickly end, because I don't want to eat into other colleagues' time, is by basically saying that at the end of all this, what is happening is the key impact, which is the most wonderful thing, is that end users, you have much more access than ever before to material on any platform that you want, whether it's your mobile phone or a laptop. There are many more ebooks. Because of content marketing, you can make much more informed choices, because you can get in. The other thing you can do is that it can be much more bespoke to you. So if we can now, most publishers can do catalogs which are for a subspeciality. Somebody starting a course wants to see books just in that specific thing. You can make a catalog just for him. You can make a catalog just for an institution. So the whole end user experience is actually getting enhanced by this. And what is happening on the other side, because of the data mining which publishers are able to do, because of this technology, they can, usage can be driven, discoverability can be improved. Once you get to know what is being used, libraries can get that information to see, okay, this area's papers are being looked at the most, or this segment is which is the most relevant to our institute, that can help support more informed buying. So it's a whole cycle, and more bespoke catering can be done. So in a sense, I know I'm painting a really rosy picture, and of course there's always another side, but it's really exciting to be in a space where there is so much that you can do to enhance both the visibility of research and this thing, and to support and help users get more and more relevant materials for themselves. And that is, I think, what this technology has done. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for a rather elaborate description of what internally changes. One element while listening to Natasha which comes to my mind that sometimes escapes our attention, especially in the academic world, is that we're not creating content or dealing with content which expires, or we're dealing with content which needs to be preserved. And maybe something that Vivek can also take up while he makes his comments later on in the panel. So let's go on to the next panelist here, a very eminent Hindu Chandrasekhar, most experienced amongst our group, with maybe 35 years of publishing experience now, starting with Macmillan and other global companies that she worked for, and quickly went into her own freelance world, and then set up the legal press in 1995. So let's hear from Indu what is her experience as an independent publisher and how she sees the academic trends evolving.
Yes, stand because this is an academic publishing. Hi everybody, great to be back at Publishing Next. It's my third time, as Leo put it yesterday. I think I come every other year, but in spirit, if not in flesh, I'm always here and in touch with other friends who organize this. Just quickly to state the perspective or the end from which I will be making just a few points, placing a few points for your consideration today. It's probably an end that is much more local. You've just heard Natasha speaking about a canvas and a world of publishing that is global in its reach as well as in its scope, potential. I I think I belong to the other end of the spectrum. We publish from Tulika Books, academic books, mainly for the home market, primarily for the home market. We publish primarily in print. We publish, this is not to say that one is afraid of technology, because I think Tulika was one of the first few players to actually take on the technological challenge of producing our own books. We set up a typesetting division first and offered a one-stop shop, as it were, for other publishers to begin with, and then those same services started benefiting our own books when we started our own publishing. So just those opening remarks to say that I may come across as speaking from a world or a perspective that is relatively old world, sometimes even called antediluvian. I am old. I have experience of 35 years in publishing. The first 10 years I worked for other publishing houses, and the last 20 years I have set up my own little, very small academic imprint under the title of Tulika Books in Delhi. It is probably tiny because we don't do more than 11 to 12 titles a year by choice. Remaining small is a choice with a number of independent publishers, including Tulika Books. But my base understanding of publishing, academic publishing, also is old world in a sense, because it goes back to the academic publishing scene that I was trained in, the 1980s. And what was that scene marked by? What were the features of that academic publishing scene? It was marked by a few big players, global entities, the triumvirate of OUP in the social sciences and the humanities. STN publishing is something I will not be speaking about because that's not my background or my expertise. So the triumvirate of OUP, Macmillan and Orient Longman pretty much ruled the roost in those days when I started out in 1980, with a few very active Indian players like Vikas, Manohar, etc., etc. But still, the total number was small. Today, 35 years hence, or even 25 years hence, over the last, say, 8 to 12 years, there are many more players in the field. And it's a much larger mix as well in terms of the kind of entities that publish academic books. You have conglomerates, you have corporate conglomerates, you have multinationals, you have independent large publishing houses, you have independent small and tiny publishers, and it is also a period, I think, the last 15 to 20 years that has seen the rise of a very flourishing, robust scene of independent publishing, and which has managed to visibilize itself almost on par with the larger houses. And there is a kind of balance that exists, if you ask me today, in academic publishing. I will not speak for other streams of publishing because I'm not really equipped to do so. There's a kind of healthy balance that exists today. Having started, what I'm trying to do is map a territory, if you like. You start with a few dominant big players, then you move to a situation where you have a larger number of big players, global players entering the scene, alongside a mushrooming of small and independent players in academic publishing as well as in other kinds of publishing. And it's good. It's like let 100 flowers bloom, as long as the content and what is being done in the name of that publishing is worth it. That is one kind. And what these independents have brought to the table, as it were, of academic publishing, to my mind, is that they have developed very carefully curated niche and focused lists. Okay? Now, niche can be described in terms of either subject areas that they publish in. We know, for instance, that Kali for Women were one of the first, was the first, not one of the first, was the first feminist press in India to set out as, again, two publishing professionals from Urvashi Butalia from OUP and Ritu Menon from Vikas come together, set up this independent publishing press, feminist press, which is the first in India. It's a niche area. Similarly, that kind of niche publishing in caste studies, Dalit studies, Adivani, the publishers here today, right up to now, it continues to flourish. Children's books, publishing from the left. So the niche can also be publishing from a certain perspective. Yeah. For instance, Tulika books, if you look at our list of books, it may not look very different from a traditional, conventional OUP list, or at least what the OUP list used to be. But there is a change in perspective. The very same authors that we select or who choose us, it's both ways. There's a change in perspective. Also, the other thing that marks independent publishing is that most independent publishers publish, I know it sounds trite, but to bring about social change of some kind. Okay, that is the motive that I was just discussing at breakfast this morning and saying, having been in publishing for 35 years, what keeps me going? It's not great. I've not been terribly successful monetarily. It's not a great business. I've just stuck around. There's a bug that's bitten me, and I probably don't know to do much else but publish by now. But what is it that keeps me going? It is because my extra publishing interests, if you want to call it that, drive me to do the publishing. And these extra publishing interests can be all kinds. You can have, the freedom of speech debate that's become a huge debate in India today. I think is a debate where independent publishers will play a very, very important role. So these kinds of social, larger questions that relate to the social environment in which we publish is also upheld by autonomy of thinking, freedom of speech, heterodox thinking, the right to dissent. All of these are, as it were, nurtured by independent publishers. I'm not saying that other publishers don't do it, but this becomes the be-all, the raison d'etre of our existence. We wouldn't survive. We wouldn't, because everything else is stacked against us. Okay? So if we didn't have these kinds of spurs, as it were. So don't become an independent publisher unless you have something like this going for you, is what I would suggest, looking back 35 years on. And all of this relates also to academic publishing. Within a classroom, what is it that keeps academia? A classroom situation in which you have a faculty and student discussion and not talking down, one talking down to the other. What keeps it alive? It should be the hallmark of academic publishing as well, because like in the classroom, like on university campuses, the spirit of heterodox thinking, the spirit of dissent, the spirit of discussion can only be kept alive through academic publishing. Academic publishers have as an author base mostly academics themselves. Yeah? And this is taking aside the content part of, focusing on the content part of it. Now to come back to other aspects of how has the academic publishing scene changed in these last 35 years that I know, that I've been closely associated with the scene. In what way has the presentation and dissemination of information changed? In what way has the distribution of information changed? One obvious large factor is technology, as Nitasha has given us a very good insight into the various ways in which technology has been exploited and has benefited various processes down the chain of bookmaking, whether online or offline, whether physical or electronic. And that led me to think, I mean, what is it? What is different about publishing houses today? I mean, today, if I look at the same publishing houses that existed then and compare them with those that exist now and are doing well in academic publishing, has there been a change? And now I'll just put it across to you in a series of questions, and I hope we can resolve or at least arrive at some discussion around these questions in the course of the panel or at the end when the floor is thrown open. Has it changed from an editorial-led strategy to a marketing-led strategy? Now, I mean, don't get me wrong in this. I'm not trying to say one is more important than the other, but I'm just trying to understand the changes. There's always been what I think is a very healthy tension or balance between the marketing flow, which always used to be above the editorial flow conventionally in a publishing house, and we editors always referred to them on the top floor, coming down and telling us what we should publish. You know, proposals had to be approved by the marketing team in the good old days. I'm talking about conventional book publishing. Today, I just look around and I see that most independents are led by editorial people, and very many of the most independent and smaller publishers, and very many of the larger academic publishers, both global and domestic, are led by marketing professionals. So this is a feature I think that has to be noted, and I mean, I'm not saying something new. I'm sure everyone is aware of it, but have we looked at it deep enough? Has that led to a change in marketing? In 2 more minutes, that's one. The second is, you know, okay, I'm going to skip a little bit. What has happened in the form of, and this is something we've been reading about in recent terms, consolidations and mergers that are happening in the world of publishing today, in the world of academic publishing. I was just discussing it with Vivek this morning over breakfast. You must have read about Sage joining hands with two independents, two very vibrant independent lists in recent times, over the last 3 or 4 months. Yeah, one is 3. Sorry, 2.
2 months.
In the last 2 months, and three players. Yeah, sorry, in the last 2 months. One is Popular Prakashan. The other is Sri Samya, based in Calcutta, and the third is, I'm in no particular order, Yoda Press. Yeah, different forms of collaboration, I'm sure. Now, how does this impact the world of academic publishing, as it were? Sage is a leader in academic publishing, as all of you know. How different is it also from the kind of consolidation or mergers or takeovers or acquisitions that happened a few years ago? The first such I can think of is the Pearson takeover of the Penguin Group. Okay, I mean globally, but it had an impact here. Sage, it's the other way around. The trend, I mean, it's all to do with players within our domestic home market. What kind of an impact is this going to have on other independents? Independents have always actually consolidated or pooled resources. They haven't consolidated in terms of joining together. They haven't co-published that much. Some have, but we've always kind of pooled resources. We've talked about having a common pool of editorial services, a common pool of iTypeset, for instance, within from Tulika, a whole lot of independent publishers now. I used Typeset for Sage, in fact, or for Penguin. I've stopped that. I do it only for independents. So this kind of sharing of resources we've always done. Exchanging ideas, meeting at forums, discussion groups, interacting with language publishers, trying to see what are the basic points of professionalization in publishing that needs to be instilled into all sectors of publishing, etc., etc. But that's a different kind of coming together, if you ask me. And the Sage example is a second example, which both of which are very different from the conventional notion of M&As. And I'd like us to think about it and see where we go from here.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, the world is changing, and I think the changing world is giving us fairly large opportunities. We are able to showcase content far more easily. We are able to think of publishing from India to the world. The world is different, and I think it's giving us independent publishers far more flexibility and opportunities to be able to express ourselves in our businesses and what we believe we should publish. Well, let me now give it to Emma. Emma, of course, represents a very active Publishers Association, which is a trade association based out of UK. A lot written about her in the book. What is not written about her in the book is that she has traveled extensively. She interacts with publishing groups of all kinds, authors, administrators, institutions, authors, and what name you, from Brazil to Mexico to China to Europe to US, and is a special friend of India. She has generally wished our industry well and has partnered with us for good things. So Emma, we would love to hear from you.
Thank you. And thank you very much to Publishing Next for inviting me here to speak. I'm very much the odd one out on the panel here, though thankfully not because I'm female, but because I don't actually work for a single publisher, and I'm also going to talk about the UK perspective rather than the Indian perspective. As Sanjeev noted, the world has changed in publishing through the development of technology, through the introduction of the internet. And this has changed the way we are producing and disseminating academic content. But what it's also done is change the way that we think about the business models of disseminating that content. In a physical world, we'd reached perhaps a happy equilibrium in balancing the needs of all the stakeholders involved in academic publishing. And it's very different to trade publishing in that there's multiple stakeholders to satisfy in finding that balance. And in digital, we're at the process of experimentation, really, in finding a balance that satisfies the needs on one side of the publisher and the author, but on the other side, the librarian and the reader. And so what I'm really going to talk about here today is the higher education textbook market and the impact that digital's had on the business models in that area. And to give some case studies and examples of the experimentation and innovation that's going on in the UK. Obviously, these are experiments and pilots and innovation which may be suited to the UK market. They may not be suitable for every market around the world. They may not be suitable for India, but certainly I think there's learnings to be had from looking at the outcomes of these pilots and experimentations. So the e-textbook production has been there. We have products on the market, but they've been very slow to take off. The students are still preferring print textbooks, even those that are coming through now that we might consider first generation digital natives that are very used to consuming content on their tablets, on their smartphones, on their laptops. That's not been the case for the e-textbook. And we have to ask ourselves why that is. And I think a lot of it at the moment is coming down to the lack of knowledge and training to be able to maximise the benefits that can come from using these new e-textbooks that are on the market. Certainly what they're not looking for is a static version of the print textbook. What they want really is a study buddy, so something that can enable them to highlight, cut, paste, annotate, chop and change, be able to link through to other content, and yet track their progress. So the advantage that print is having over digital is that you're able to go back through the books, see the notes that you've made, see where that's led you to, and I think the ability to do that in the digital format is very essential and very necessary, and certainly the PDF or the static version of the textbook isn't the answer to that. So one experiment that has happened in recent years is for a university in the UK, Plymouth University, to purchase all the textbooks required for their first year students for the courses that they're studying. Now this introduction of e-textbooks and the need for experimentation also came about with a change in the UK where funding for universities from the government significantly reduced, and we saw the introduction of fees being charged for students. So students had been used to going to university for no cost, were all of a sudden having to find £9,000 a year for their tuition fees. And so this has led to universities becoming much more competitive in the market. How do they then attract students to choose their university over another university? And so Plymouth University saw the opportunity to say, well, we'll bundle in the textbooks for the students into their tuition fee. So every first year student that comes on board, no matter what course they're studying, will have the access of all the textbooks that they need. The other benefit to this is that professors knew that they were teaching knowing that all students could access the reading list. There was no waiting in the library for checkouts. There was no concerns over whether the student was going to pick and choose the reading list. And it just created a very level playing field. Because these textbooks were interactive, it allowed the students to share notes amongst themselves as well through the digital platforms. It freed up library resources, so the libraries were able to spend budgets on the more supplementary materials rather than the core textbooks, knowing that every student had every textbook belonging to them. It also proved to be very good for publishers. They had predictable sales, so there was no question over how many of the students were going to buy how many of the reading list. So it did make very good predictable sales for the publishers, and also enabled multi-year deals to take place amongst the publishers and the universities. It was good for the university. They were offering a service, they were offering a better job to their students, and the students were very happy. There was a good response from the students at the end of the pilot. They were able to carry around all of their textbooks on one device, although the device had to be provided by them. Many of the students chose the iPad or a similar tablet or the Kindle Fire, where they could load all of the textbooks onto one platform, onto one device, and it was device agnostic. There was no need to have internet access apart from initially when you're downloading the books onto your device, and they were able to do searching amongst all of the textbooks by keywords. They were able to annotate, note, highlight, etc. What was interesting, however, is that 50% of those students still went out and bought at least one of the physical books. So they weren't completely convinced about the benefits that could be derived from having those e-textbooks, and still went out and bought at least one of those physical books. What it did emerge was that training was needed, and so publishers were needing to invest in training librarians to be able to then train the students on how to maximise the benefits from those e-textbooks. It did, however, influence the students' decision to go to that university, knowing that they wouldn't have the extra burden of the cost of the textbooks. At the end of the experiment, however, one comment that did come out from the university is why go to publishers when you can develop your own open source textbooks? So questioning the need for the publisher there. And that's led to another pilot project that we've seen in the UK, which is known as the institution as a publisher. So for universities that don't traditionally have university presses, giving them some seed funding to become publishers themselves and see where that experimentation came from. So a form of self-publishing, if you like, becoming a platform for researchers, professors at the university to publish under the imprimatur of the university. Those pilots are still ongoing, but I think what the institutions are finding is that this isn't their core strength. They don't have the experience, they don't have the skills fully required to publish, and that it is actually an expensive and time-consuming process to go through. But that's still progressing. What publishers are also doing, and we talked about the sharing of resources earlier, but there's also a sharing of content going on. So the independent publisher Bloomsbury very wisely used its money from the Harry Potter phenomenon to invest in setting up an academic imprint. So Bloomsbury Academic emerged, and a series of acquisitions went through to build up content under the Bloomsbury brand and enable them to develop the community model that we've referred to earlier, using the academic business model to provide access to content such as drama and theatre content, fashion content, and also partner with other publishers that have similar content to build platforms and subscription models that academic institutions can subscribe to on behalf of their students to provide unlimited and simultaneous access to those products and that content at the same time. So that's taken not only the business model, but building up a consortium of publishers working together. That's also worked in the textbook space, where a new digital platform emerged a few years ago, founded by a group of the major international academic publishers, a platform called Course Smart, which provided different business model access to that academic content. You could rent, you could buy, you could do chapter, you could do page, you could do full book access. And the customers for that platform were universities, booksellers, faculty, academics, as well as students themselves. And that's now been purchased and subsumed within the Ingram Group. And the final one that I want to talk about is a project that came from Dr. Francis Pinter, who worked for Bloomsbury Academic, who has set up a new project called Knowledge Unlatched. And this is experimenting with the open access model, but for books and monographs. So open access has been experimented very much in the journal space, but this is an interesting project in that it's open access for textbooks and for monographs. And whereas for the journal space, it's the author that is paying the article publishing charge, here we're seeing the librarians come together and build in consortia to fund an open access textbook. So the librarians are global. We see as many as 200 coming together to fund one textbook. And they are funding the major publishers to produce that textbook. It funds the cost of production of that textbook, funds the author fee, and the librarians then have open access to that textbook. So it's a win-win situation again, that the cost of the publishing is covered for the publisher. The library is having to spend a smaller amount of their budget on that product, and they're able to provide full open access, simultaneous access to that textbook for all of their readers. And there's been about 28, I think, books funded in that way now, and then those books have perhaps found the equilibrium that I spoke about earlier between rewarding the publisher and funding the author, but providing a cheaper way for librarians to spend their budgets and providing that reader access as well, no queues for checkout, that simultaneous online access that they're able to then download. So the future really is what we're seeing, the big buzzwords at the moment, open access, but personalised learning. So digital is really enabling a much more personalised way for students to learn. The all singing, all dancing, interactive textbooks not only provide good facilities and access for the student, but there's a whole range of data and semantics being able to be collected at the back, which is helping both publishers and academics personalise the way that they're delivering their content to the needs of that particular student. And I think we're going to see much more of that to come. So those are just some of the examples that we're seeing in the UK. I'm sure we're going to see many more experiments coming forward as budgets are discussed, as new business models are discussed, as technology is facilitating and enabling access to content, and as the users are becoming much more familiar with the use of technology and what it can do for them. Thank you.
It's really nice to hear what's happening across the world. Anyway, quickly, we finally have Ben talk to us.
That's true. So I'm going to kind of race through a couple of points. So we've got some diverse views and we've got some information of what's happening. So I'll try and plug in a couple of the gaps that I saw. So on open access, I just wanted, just for everybody's shared knowledge. So there are multiple types of open access, and there's still some confusion about what open access is. It's free in a sense, but it's not free in another sense. So somebody does pay for it. It doesn't automatically happen. So the whole open access movement started with people saying, if I'm funding research, why is it behind a gate? It started from there. So the very first instance of open access was, okay, if you have funded research and you don't want it behind a gateway, I require some time before I can actually monetize that research and be able to recover costs on publishing, and then you can make it available for free. And that's where the green open access model came out. That wasn't good enough. There was argument, 12 months is enough, 6 months is enough, 24 months is enough. People literally went to battle over that. And then emerged the gold model, which is, okay, you have a cost of publishing, take it up front, I want the research available for free. That's how gold came about. And then there was a third one which said, well, yes, I'm happy to have my knowledge disseminated. I don't want the author to pay for it. I have funding and I'm able to fund that research or fund the publishing. And if somebody wants it in print, he can still pay for it. So that's how the hybrid model came about. Two things that I thought weren't covered. One of them is databases. So when we talk about databases, we conjure up images of typing in text words and then finding articles, finding books, finding any kind of information that's related to that. That's not actually the only type of database that's now emerging. So if you were studying in Goa and you wanted to look at the National Archives, you had to travel to Delhi, get permission, get involved with individuals over there, and then spend some time researching whatever archives that you wanted to research. Well, there will be a time you could be sitting in Goa and you'll be able to access that database because it will be digitized. It will be annotated. It will be searchable either through uploading an image. It will be searchable through typing in keywords. It will be searchable through defining certain parameters. So knowledge will become searchable, and not just from using text, but even through images. So that project is broadly classified under primary sources. So you have original works, for example, the National Archives of the British Library, for example, have been digitized, and you have the images from the Mohenjo-daro seals in there, and there's write-up behind it. You can get the images, you can see what's in there. A lot of the history that is recorded by in the 1800s and the 1900s books in different languages, annotated, but you can actually see the book in digital form. You can see personal letters, words have been transcribed from them to be able to give the reader or the researcher a connecting platform. Along with that has come another product line. So we talked, Natasha touched upon video and the use of video to illustrate issues or illustrate classroom lessons. We were quite familiar with that. But there's the emergence of video as a library product, where academics actually go on tape and record a thematic kind of a series of lectures or a thematic, a theme-based presentation. It could be on the books that they've written, on the subjects that they are specialists in. But it's become a product that libraries can rent out for their students. It does not straddle, it's not something equivalent to classroom teaching, it's not something which is instructional, but it is like the next form of reference publishing. Straight from the horse's mouth. Believe it or not, we talk about publishers funding all of this, we've talked about research foundations funding this, but there is also a very curious entity that's funding a lot of different ways of doing academic publishing. And this is a bunch of Nobel laureates who have come together, set up a website called geoset.info, and you must visit it just to see the type of the ease with which video is becoming a teaching medium, it's becoming a CV, it's replacing a lot of conventional ways in which knowledge was shared. And this is completely driven by these Nobel laureates. They funded it. It's completely open access. You can go there, create your own file. You can see how you look. You can publish it. You can store it. You can use it as part of your CV. So the last piece I wanted to touch upon was the role of publishers. We've been probably this morning I was squirming a bit when Mamangai was speaking and saying, my publisher didn't respond and didn't do that, and yeah, publishers are kind of prone to doing that, and I still don't understand why. But publishers used to be gatekeepers. This is good knowledge, this should be published, that's not good, that shouldn't be published. That's what we did. Publishers had clout. They could put books on shelves, they could ensure that books were in libraries, and if you didn't have that clout, you generally suffered. But all of that has become democratized now. It's gone. If a publisher doesn't publish a manuscript, you've got so many options. Cinnamon Teal is one. They will publish you. A publisher is not willing to distribute you. A whole bunch of people who distribute you. Cinnamon Teal is one. So the point being made is the role of the publisher is gone, or has evolved, or it has changed. And I am a very strong advocate of saying, from gatekeepers, we've got to become pathways. We are best equipped to drive a person right to the point that he wants to actually go to. Sanjeev and I were discussing, there are 400 billion websites or web pages, whatever the number is. It's a staggering number. Anything that appears beyond the second page of Google does not get seen. So if Google is a great pathway, you need some expertise in navigating it. If the content that you want is on page 10, the chances are extremely small that you'll ever reach page 10 of Google's search engine. So that's the role that a specialized entity like a publisher is going to play in the future. It's going to become a pathway of leading the person directly to the content, get rid of all the chatter, get rid of all the clutter that the information overflow that comes in. Technology is perhaps the biggest innovator. It's ensuring that this becomes easier and easier to do. And the last piece on what the pathway is going to lead to is also for restoring and storing knowledge. Digitizing ensures that the content stays forever. Digital products technically don't have an expiry date. A book can have one, it will age, the binding will come off, pages will tear, it will curl, whatever it is. Digital content, if done correctly and backed up, and be there forever. So that's basically the landscape that I see, and I'm hoping that we can get some more questions. And I wanted to answer Indu's question on what the merger with Sage is going to do. I don't want to subsume or consume the independent presses. I'm hoping that these imprints give them a new lease of life. I'm hoping we can preserve their independence. Thank you.
I think you did a friend a favor by also kind of concluding the session in many ways, so saves me some more effort. Anyway, let's get everybody to participate with questions, and there are some nice debates that we can have. Anyone?
Yeah, so basically it's about this, the university is making their textbooks available to students, digital, I mean, these are e-textbooks, right? So these textbooks are made available to them for a short period while they are at the institute, right?
They get to keep them.
They get to keep them.
Yeah, so they're able to download them and keep them on their device.
Okay, because I was a bit confused because my daughter was at SOAS and she had all her reading materials available to her only for a brief period of that 2 years or whatever while she was. So these Plymouth made it available
Yes,
to keep. So that's
to keep, yeah. So there's lots of different experimentation going on, and some universities are even buying the print copies of all the textbooks. And they're even finding that some students don't even collect the textbooks that they bought for them. So it is working out which model works best for the institution and the student and the library as well.
Yeah, the lady in yellow.
Hello. When we speak about technology, I think a lot of people like to think of technology making the world this one connected place where everyone comes together to create this world of knowledge that everyone has access to. But I was wondering also if there are certain cultural biases that technology can't quite cross. Like for example, I'm a freelance editor, and I know that a lot of international clients have a lot of skepticism about editors from India they see as non-native speakers. And also I happen to be speaking to a certain professor in India who said that he would never want his book to be published in India because he said, who's going to read Derrida in India? I'd much rather publish it abroad. So I was wondering whether these cultural biases do affect your business, or do you really think of technology and it being just a matter of time till technology crosses those bridges as well, where it will be possible to send a book on Derrida to international reviewers so that that professor in India feels like he's getting the exposure that his book deserves?
Do you know anyone specific to answer this question?
Just the 4 publishers from India.
Well, I represent a business which is largely or dominantly scientific. I don't say that we don't publish near as human science, but that level of publishing has no nationality. It's completely unbiased. It's completely neutral, and there is no limitation. And one of the ways that we are trying to engage with the Indian subcontinent is to publish in India and sell it all over the world at the same time. And this is not what was not possible in the past. So content did get discriminated. But today the world is looking at content very easily coming out of places like India. Asia is growing, and if the world does not wake up to what is happening here and how people are expressing themselves here, and if the growths, the GDPs of the world are going to be driven by Asia, they will not know what to do here. So I think it's a far more open world today, and I think limitations of the past are collapsing.
I don't want to comment, I just want to add to her question. So, I want to add a dimension. She just spoke about cultural bias. I want to ask all of ourselves. What about the reality of publishing for students, researchers in India, in our home market, where digital penetration is still, let's face it, not a reality? How many students, even in the capital city of India, have devices, hardware, to read? They don't even have access to individual computers. Libraries don't have, librarians conventionally, especially in the smaller towns, even in the leading cities, rely on print books and catalogs. You can't even send them soft copies of catalogs. So what happens to all of that? The bias of technology.
Okay. Let me take from two angles. I'll answer Indu's, but let me take the one on freelance editing. I don't know if you're aware, but close to 90% of academic content, one way or the other, flows through India. Okay, 90+%. On editing, there isn't a bias. What there is clearly is an issue of professionalism. Timelines, delivery, following certain types of schedules as well as styles. That's an issue. It takes a lot of effort to get the same kind of professionalism. I'll speak from my own experience. So my background is more on the services side. But I spent the last 8 years trying to develop freelance models. 8 years. And the last 2 years I've become disillusioned and said vendors and freelancers are not going to do it. So I've gone the reverse of what most publishers have gone. We've set up a delivery center for ourselves. So we are investing very heavily on that. And to answer Indu's question on print, so I'll again take Sage's example. So Sage has gone into core textbooks, print only, not available digitally. Priced under 450 rupees, all of them. They start as low as 195 to 450. Targeted and content developed for UGC courses, for individuals, for universities, specifically, and I'm not worried about the brand. If a university says I want customized content, we are doing it. If a university says I want to adopt this book, we are doing it. But it doesn't have an electronic, equivalent at this point. And the last piece on publishing out of India, in the same textbooks, I have done the reverse of what was happening earlier with conventional publishing. So you had US, UK institutes and you had authors from there writing textbooks and then having an Indian edition. I've done the reverse. We've got 3 books which are primarily listed for as Indian textbooks, but I have a US version of that, which is adopted in US universities. And they have been priced at the US price. The Indian, it's not originally published in the US, it's published originally here. And that program, I promise you, out of India is only going to grow. It requires a different mindset. You need a different motivation for authors to be able to do it. But we've got 3 in 2050.
Okay, I think there's very little for me to add, but just very quickly, just to take up from the last point, what we are doing here, I can only talk from our experience, is that we are, we are sourcing equally content from here. So in lists like, for example, engineering or medicine, Indian authorship is a significant part of the global list. And the interesting thing is that those books, textbooks even in engineering by authors from Indian institutions, are getting adopted in Europe, in the US. So giving that platform to Indian content is actually already happening. And I think it's only going to grow. And one of the reasons for it is that India continues to be such a big market. And if that doesn't change, then, and Indu actually, Emma's example shows that they still want print, so that that's going to carry on.
Yeah, Vinod just said that 5 more minutes, so we take some more questions. I'm so sorry, Natasha. Apologies for interrupting you.
Apart from the universities, what are the ideas you have to enlarge this market? As a publisher, do you have any idea to enlarge this market apart from the universities? Because the academic is mostly the market is around the universities, institutions, and all, right? If I'm wrong, just let me know.
So what I understand of your question is that this discussion today is focused on academic institutions and academic publishing.
Yeah.
May be relevant to larger context, but publishing is happening in various ways and languages, and each of us do work in the areas of our core competence. So it's very difficult for a high-level reference publisher to start publishing textbooks because the internal mechanisms and really organized doesn't lend itself to that kind of flexibility. So there are specialized reference college publishers or specialized school publishers. So businesses have a way of focusing on their core competence. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Questions?
To Vivek, you said publishers should become from being gatekeepers to pathways. How is it possible? Especially when Google is there, technology is so overpowering.
That was my point, that you can find something on Google, but Google has its own way of finding things. And what if the relevant, what you are seeking is on page 10? You're never going to reach it.
Is also about to ask a question regarding the characterization or definition you made, like democratization. And I just want to juxtapose it within those observations that independents are editorial driven. Shouldn't democracy be taking responsibility of being gatekeepers, then taking a stand that we are not gatekeepers? So, is that democratization that is happening, or is it market driven?
That was my question too. That would have been my question too. This term democratization is sort of extended in a way that it just means anything goes in some way. So how are we talking about publishing values and quality benchmarking and those kind of things when we talk about making things democratic?
So my point on that one is, why should a small bunch of people be the only ones who are custodians of those values? For
Because
example,
you're investing in it.
That's true. But you take self-publishing, right?
Yeah.
Your entire argument then is against self-publishing, because a self-publisher is, by his very definition, not really getting into the nitty-gritty the way Springer says would get into the kind of content evaluation and all of that. There's a whole debate about peer review. So journals with peer review, should there be? There have been sting operations which basically have been trying to expose and say, actually no peer review happens. It's there, all sorts of things are there in the universe. My point is, technology is enabling everybody to be heard. Whether it's correct or not is for the end user to decide, the person who's going to pay money. Earlier it was very simple. Publisher said, this is great, Springer built something, Elsevier built something, Taylor&Francis built something, Sage built something, and they stood for certain values, and everybody said, look, I'm paying this money, I'm comfortable. I know what I'll get. I have somebody I can go to and say, I paid you money, but I've not got what I wanted. But technology is shattered that.
Should we do away with anything?
Sorry?
Should we do away with anything?
No, it's not for us to it's not an either or. You're seeing it as a complete black and white scenario, and I'm saying it's just multiple shades of grey.
Okay, I think that was the last question. We have one minute. We won't have time for all the questions, so I'm going to this one. Yeah, I think Indrajit was waiting. He will be the last.
I just wanted to.
So sorry, but we can we'll probably be able to take up some of this in other sessions that will come up, and you could speak to them individually later if you have any clarification. I'm really sorry. This would be our last question.
So I'll keep this short. I wanted a perspective on how you see this academic publishing market evolving, because while textbooks and digitizing textbooks is one way to do it, but we're looking at flow, right, and not rigid, kind of products which don't necessarily stand the test of time. So do you see universities in UK and in India responding to the opportunities that digitization allows? Because in the interactions that I've had, I'm a teacher as well, so I do find some inherent rigidities in the especially in higher education, where the need and the knowledge is so fast changing. Is there receptivity to new ideas, given the fact that textbooks is one way, but content is expanding well beyond textbooks into more workshopping, learning by doing, that kind of learning imperative, rather than just relying on very well-defined e-textbooks? Is there? How do you see that market evolving, innovation happening in that space?
The innovation.
If you are asking more questions on that.
No, my question.
She's our counterbalance.
You'll notice is a comment most of the time. Just to add to your question, are our universities, in the higher education system in our country, is still primarily a public university system. It's primarily state-driven. There are more and more private universities coming into the thing, so I'm not talking, they are still in a minority. Does a state-run higher education institution have the resources, the wherewithal to even, so I wouldn't say they are rigidities of mindset. Maybe they are rigidities born out of necessity.
Okay, first of all, I think that at the higher end of the spectrum, the IITs, the IIMs, they're already doing all of the things we're talking about. It's much more bespoke, it's online, it's much more tailored to individual courses, so it's happening. As far as the university system is concerned, I mean, in case of journals, it's the InflibNet and the various government consortia which get together to get content which is otherwise too expensive for individuals to answer your. And they provide this access to the UGC, central universities, to state universities. They even are now provided to private players as associate members. So for a small fee, you can actually get access to the whole bunch of content from. So there are ways in which this is happening already. The funding now in a lot of places is geared towards investing much more in e-resources. You have the World Bank funds which come in, which are specifically for the RUSA funds now, which is the higher education fund. So they are, I think the real challenge is really on the other side. How do you drive usage? How do people learn? And that's where I think publishers like us need to play a really big role in doing workshops. And I think we're doing it. All of us are doing it in pockets. But one of the realizations we have is that, it little drops all over, and maybe with us collaborating, we could do much more. Because people get those e-resources, but then there's no usage, then they go back to the print. Then, so I think that end of the spectrum is where much more work and effort is required.
And over to Nita to take the session further.
Yes, thank you so much, all of you, for this very interesting discussion, which doesn't seem to have ended with the close of the session. So I'd encourage people to corner the speakers over lunch and really bother them with questions.